Time for Law and Disorder.
I demand a lawyer.
With attorney Jeff Kaufman on 101.1 WJRR.
All right, Jeff Kaufman is here. He is a personal injury attorney for Kaufman Lynd, where he's one of the partners. If you or someone you know has been injured, however it may be, and you think you might need a lawyer to get involved, that's a good question to ask. The first question asked, does my situation even warrant legal representation, Jeff?
I mean, that's the way it works. A lot of times you think about, people see all the billboards and everything, and they're going to wonder what the deal is. And it's real simple. If you got hurt, it was no fault of your own, then you got to see a lawyer. Don't trust the insurance companies. Don't do anything. Call a lawyer immediately. It doesn't have to be me, but, somebody who will give you advice and you feel comfortable with.
If you do want to call Kaufman Lynd here locally, 407-706-3535, or you can email Jeff directly, right?
Yeah, Jeff@whenyouneedus.com.
All right. So I do have some questions that have come in here from listeners. I want to get to those. I wanted to bring one real quick that we just had in idiotology, though. 3-year-old kid is with mom at a Walmart supercenter in Bedford, Indiana. Another shopper in there has their emotional support monkey with them.
Wow.
A 16-year-old Java macaw monkey. Of course, the 3-year-old sees the monkey.
Monkeys are strong.
And 3-year-olds are curious. And
attractive nuisance.
Monkey scratches up the 3-year-old. Now, the kid's going to be fine. Mom's not going crazy or anything. The person who has the emotional support monkey produces paperwork. I've got an emotional support. It was paperwork for an emotional support dog that they were trying to.
They're faking it.
They're faking it. So what would have been the potential liability there if this mom decided, hey?
Yeah, it's absolutely there. She's responsible. The hard thing in these situations is
the monkey owner is.
Yes, the monkey owner is absolutely responsible. Even if it was a support dog and it did it. The fact is that when it comes down to it, they're responsible for their animals. I mean, animals are the same, and I know people are going to have a problem with this. Animals are considered property in most states. So you're responsible for your property and what it does and what it doesn't do. I mean, that's just the way it works. It's like no difference between a gun and an animal. It happens all the time.
So the store has no liability in a situation like this?
No. Well, here's the problem. A lot of places, based on federal law, aren't allowed to ask for, to show paperwork and things like that. It depends on the state, depends on what you're dealing with. Emotional support animals are difficult. I mean, I've seen emotional support sheep. I've seen these other issues. I've never seen a monkey.
It's gotten to the point where some of these are ridiculous.
Let me just, people are telling me, they go, Jeff, you're a little rough here. Okay, first off the support animals, the people who need them, for example, like my son is on the autism spectrum. If he needed one, I mean, it costs $10,000, $20,000 to maybe even $50,000 to, train these animals to make sure they're okay. Just don't slap, a jacket on it and say, okay, this is my emotional support animal. You got to be responsible. There are people out there who really need it. It's like stealing handicapped parking spots.
Yeah. Speaking of cars and whatnot, this is a good question. Listener wants to know, hey, I'm currently looking to buy a new vehicle. And I've been, going and checking out some different dealerships and whatnot, and trying.
That's our own piece of hell, isn't it?
Everybody goes through this,
but every 5 years,
test drives. If I take a vehicle out from a dealership on a test drive, someone from the dealership generally goes with you. You show your license. You take the test drive, see if you like the car. What happens if you are involved in an accident, whether it's your fault or someone else's fault, in that brand new vehicle that you're test driving? How does that play out?
It depends on what kind of insurance policy do you have. If it's your insurance, it might cover it. The car place most likely has their own insurance on top of that. So, it's going to be trying to figure out which insurance policy covers it.
So if you're in their car, the dealership's car, let's say you're just out, minding your own business, taking the test drive, and somebody smashes into you, and
they're
not your
fault. They're responsible.
It'll be all on them. That you have no liability.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. In the state of Florida, 40% of all drivers don't have insurance,
which is scary.
It is. So that's why I keep telling you, and your people think I'm selling insurance. Make sure you don't opt out if you're uninsured motorist. And you have to do that when you're, whether online or you're talking to your person, and you're only allowed to get as much uninsured motorists as you actually, if you hit somebody, let's say you have 50,000, you can get 50,000 of uninsured motorists on top of that. You can't get more uninsured motorists than you have regular insurance.
And generally, that uninsured motorist that's not going to add tremendously to your.
Oh, sure it does.
No,
you mean
to your premium?
No, not to the premium, but I can tell you the difference. I mean, I've seen people that nothing, and thank God they had this thing. And it feels bad every once in a while when I try to tell people, and they're going, "Well, I opted out because I couldn't afford the $300," and that's about what it is. Yeah. Do not opt out.
That's an extra layer of protection for you. So
that's the only protection you have a lot of times. So be careful.
40% of people on the road right now. Think about this if you're going to work right now or school or wherever.
Could you imagine that Georgia is better than we are with this? Georgia beats us. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Georgia. I'm just going, normally people think Georgia's a little, back ass, but they are so much better than we are as far as requiring people.
Funneling into this state from all over the place, so you have no idea what you're dealing with.
Yeah, it's painful.
So, all right, this question actually came up years ago when we were facing this problem here, and we now have it again in a good portion of Central Florida. Debris piles everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere.
Everywhere. There's
bags and bags of it now.
Debris piles and bags, and just, post the two hurricanes.
Hey, when that hurricane came by, you know how much that debris just took everything out.
Right. So it's going to be a while, obviously, before all this stuff is picked up.
We're pretty good. I mean, our system's pretty good.
I know it's pretty good, and there's a lot of crews out there doing it. I'm not coming down.
I want to thank all those people who are taking all this crap and making it safe for all of us. So thank you guys who are working the trucks and everything. It's a huge deal.
So what happens if and this was the specific question, we get to Halloween coming up next week, and, there's a neighborhood where kids are out doing their thing, and a debris pile comes into play, whether it's a kid ducking out from behind one and somebody accidentally or is injured because it's dark, they don't see it. Because these things are piled up at the foot of people's property.
They're called hidden dangers. And if it's hidden and it can't be seen, you're going to have to put some yellow stuff around it. You're going to have to do something so people can see it. It's like having a hole in your yard. It's the same thing applies. I've seen this happen where somebody has a huge hole in their yard and you can't see it at night and somebody walks across it. And you're going to say, well, they were trespassing. Trespassers, you have to protect them against hidden dangers.
Yeah.
So be careful. Obvious dangers, no. Hidden dangers, yes.
All right. What else we got? Oh, a question from a listener says, I've heard you say that it's very, very difficult to sue the government.
I didn't say it's difficult. I said there's limitations to it.
Okay. Their specific question is, what happens if you are injured on government property? And they give the examples like a state or national park.
In the state of Florida, we have what we call state sovereignty, and it limits your damages to $200,000 and $300,000. $200,000 for an individual, $300,000 total for a whole event. So let's say three of you are in a car, and you get hit by a police car or something. Each person is limited to a maximum of $200,000 and the incident to $300,000. So there's only $300,000 for the whole car. So
that's if an emergency vehicle.
That's any government vehicle. That could be a dog catcher.
Well, what happens if what if you trip or something over a hazard, and like they gave the example, let's use Washington, D.C. So much of that is national property.
Well, that's a different situation. D.C. has different laws. We're talking about Florida. You gotta be careful because every state has different rules, and some don't provide any. Some states it's unlimited. So that's why when you say, "Oh, that city had to pay $7 million or $50 million,"
right.
That wouldn't happen in Orlando. Orlando's limited to $200 to $300. Every city, every state group in Florida is limited to that amount.
Gotcha. One final question, and it's not about it's advice in general from you. They're looking for your opinion. Jeff, my son is in high school. He's expressed interest in becoming a lawyer. He's pretty bright. I don't think he'd have a problem doing that. I'd love to get your thoughts on the landscape these days of someone looking to go into that field in general.
Our field is like any other one. You have to have aggressive people. You got to have people who care. I mean, the problem we have now is half my office, I'd say right now, 85% of my office are women. And it's because women tend to be more aggressive in today's world than they were maybe 20, 30 years ago. So what's going to happen is this. Your son, how can I put it? He's got to learn how to fight for himself. I would tell him, go on the speech and debate team. Get good at this. Take theater classes. Anything that allows you to come out of your shell. But whatever you're going to have to do, you're going to have to fight for it. The legal landscape is tough. I mean, we do need lawyers, though, so that's a good thing.
Is there a specific area of law that you think might hold more opportunity for someone who's just looking to go into it versus, ultimate big scheme?
I think you got to love what you love. I mean, it's any job. If you go into something and you hate doing it, you're going to be terrible at it. Now, what I tell people, new lawyers and everything else like that, when they first come in, I say get into the criminal defense realm. Work at the public defender's office, the state attorney's office. These are opportunities you'll have to be in court and to fight. And you can't teach that. You need that experience. Like when I fly to courts all over the world. Could you imagine walking into a court with a judge you don't know? You're on foreign territory and you don't know what the room looks like. You don't know the bailiffs. You have to be prepared to fight at all times. And that's the benefit I love about what I do, is that I get an opportunity to fight for people in different arenas. And that's kind of fun for me.
I have a question on that note here. Of the millions of people that are lawyers, that's what they do for a living. What percentage of that do you think never step foot in a courtroom? You could be a lawyer and never actually step foot in a courtroom.
Well, if you're a divorce attorney, you got to go to court. If you're a criminal attorney, you got to go to court. There's certain areas that you might not have to be, like trademark and things like that. I know lawyers who sometimes never go to court ever, but if you're in certain areas, you're going to go a lot. I would say there's some civil areas, like some property stuff that you don't have to. Like if you do, for example, title work, like home closings. So you'll never go into a courtroom over that.
What you're saying is the boring stuff.
The really boring stuff.
Okay,
but the boring stuff pays. So
I got you.
if he's good looking, if your boy's good looking, he's got a little flair, he might do well in property.
Right.
Listen, you never know. I mean,
or in criminal defense.
Criminal defense, I would not
win over that jury.
I did it for 5 years, and that was enough for me. It's just a lot of darkness about it.
All right. You got anything going on you want the listeners to know about, Jeff?
Yeah, I had a good time. I want to thank the Melbourne Independent Film Festival for inviting me there this weekend. I got to support a lot of special needs kids. It was fun.
Sorry about